Before you dive into this story, remember, sometimes the quietest people hide the loudest pasts, and those who are underestimated become the most dangerous when pushed too far. If you love stories filled with suspense, revenge, and shocking twists that keep you on the edge, make sure to subscribe right now so you never miss tales like this, because this one will leave you questioning how much you really know about the people around you. Deep in the heart of rural Georgia, where the land stretched out in rolling acres of cornfields, barns, and wild woods, lived a woman everyone simply called Miss Ruth. She was in her late 50s, a tall, broad-shouldered black woman with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that carried a quiet storm, but most people in the nearby town only saw her as the farmer who sold the freshest vegetables at the market, the woman who kept to herself, polite but distant, with a mysterious air that made gossips whisper and curious folks wonder, yet no one dared pry too far because there was something about her that commanded a natural respect. But what no one in that small town truly knew, what even her closest neighbors could never imagine, was that Miss Ruth was not just a farmer, she was a retired military sniper, one of the most feared sharpshooters the U.S. Army had ever trained, a woman with confirmed kills in battlefields most Americans couldn't even pronounce, a legend whispered about in classified files under the codename Nightshade. For years, she had buried that past under the soil she tilled, finding peace in planting seeds instead of pulling triggers, choosing silence over the thunder of war, and telling herself she had finally earned rest. But peace is fragile, and fate, cruel as always, was about to drag her back into the darkness she thought she had left behind. It started one humid evening when the sun bled red across the horizon, and Ruth sat on her porch rocking chair, sipping sweet tea while her two loyal hounds dozed at her feet, when a distant rumble of engines broke the calm. At first, she thought it was just kids joyriding down the dirt road, but as the sound grew louder, more aggressive, and headlights began cutting through the dust, Ruth's instincts sharpened. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing, as 5 black pickup trucks rolled into her driveway, engines growling like wolves circling prey. Out spilled nearly 20 men, rough-looking, dressed in leather jackets, boots, and tattoos marking them as members of a notorious biker gang that had been terrorizing farms across the county, stealing livestock, burning barns, and extorting money in exchange for protection. Their leader, a thick-bearded brute named Cutter, stepped forward with a baseball bat slung across his shoulders, his eyes gleaming with malice as he shouted, "Evenin', Miss Ruth. We heard you've got yourself a fine farm here. Thought we'd come collect our share." Ruth didn't flinch. She didn't scream or beg. She simply set her tea down, rose slowly, and said in a calm voice, "You boys picked the wrong place." Cutter laughed, his gang echoing like hyenas, and one of them sneered, "What's she gonna do, shoot us with a broomstick?" They thought she was just another old farmer woman, defenseless, easy pickings. But Ruth's eyes flicked briefly toward the old barn, where under the floorboards lay a locked trunk she hadn't opened in years, a trunk containing her M24 sniper rifle, her Glock, and enough ammunition to wage her own war. She tried reason first. "Leave now," she said firmly, "and I'll forget you were ever here." But arrogance makes men deaf, and Cutter, grinning wide, smashed one of her wooden fence posts with his bat. "We're taking your cows, your chickens, and whatever else we want. And if you don't like it, sweetheart, we'll take this house too." At that moment, something inside Ruth shifted, an old fire rekindled, the soldier within her awakening like a sleeping beast. She raised her hand, whistled sharp, and her hounds leapt to their feet, growling deep, their hackles raised. The gang members chuckled, drawing chains and knives, ready to strike, but Ruth wasn't aiming to fight them head-on, not yet. Instead, she turned calmly and walked into her house, shutting the door behind her, while the men laughed, mistaking her retreat as surrender. But Ruth wasn't retreating, she was preparing. Inside, she unlocked the hidden compartment beneath her floorboards, her hands steady as she pulled out the sniper rifle she once swore she'd never touch again. Memories flooded her. Afghanistan rooftops, nights where she lay still for 48 hours without moving, her breath steady as death whispered through her crosshairs. She shook them off. Tonight wasn't about war overseas. Tonight was about survival at home. Outside, the gang began smashing her barn doors, dragging out animals, kicking at the dogs that barked furiously, and one even lit a match, threatening to burn the hay. That's when a sharp crack split the air. One man dropped, his hand pierced clean through by a bullet, the gunshot echoing like thunder over the farm. Panic rippled through the gang as they stumbled back, shouting, "Where the hell did that come from?" But Ruth was invisible, perched in the upstairs window, her rifle steady, her breath calm, her eyes cold. Cutter cursed, trying to rally his men. "She can't take us all. Spread out." But one by one, every time a man strayed too close to the house or aimed at her animals, another shot rang out, precise, crippling but never killing. Yet she was sending a message: leave. Still, stubborn pride drove Cutter to press on. "Burn her out," he roared, and two bikers rushed toward the porch with Molotov cocktails, only to be met by Ruth herself stepping out with her Glock drawn, both men dropping before they could even light the bottles. The gang reeled. "She's crazy," one yelled. Cutter, furious and humiliated, stormed forward with his bat, swearing he'd bash her skull in himself, but Ruth let him come close enough to see the steel in her eyes, before smashing the butt of her rifle into his jaw, dropping him flat. But just when victory seemed certain, headlights appeared again, more trucks, reinforcements from the gang's main chapter. This wasn't just 20 men now. This was 50, armed with shotguns and chains, surrounding her land. For the first time, Ruth felt the weight of the odds, but fear was a stranger to her. She quickly retreated into the woods behind her farm, laying traps she'd prepared years ago out of old soldier habit, tripwires, snares, and vantage points. The night became a battlefield. Men screamed as they stumbled into spikes, others fell to precise gunfire, the chaos building until even the bravest began to falter. But among them was a young recruit, barely 20, trembling with his shotgun, who hesitated when he saw her. He reminded Ruth of her son, lost in the service years ago, and for a moment, her heart wavered. She lowered her gun and told him, "Go home, boy. This ain't your fight." He dropped his weapon and ran. Yet mercy was dangerous, for Cutter, bloodied but not broken, seized the chance to tackle her from behind, a knife glinting in his hand. The struggle was brutal, his strength against her experience, but in the end, Ruth twisted his wrist, disarmed him, and pressed the blade to his throat. "You should have listened when I told you to leave," she whispered. Cutter's eyes widened, realizing too late that this farmer was death itself wrapped in human skin. She didn't kill him, she wanted witnesses. Instead, she dragged him before his broken gang and declared, "This is your last warning. Come back here again, and none of you leave alive." By dawn, the survivors fled, carrying their unconscious leader, too shaken to ever return. The town would later wake to whispers of what happened, of gunfire echoing through the night, of bikers limping into the with shattered hands and terror in their eyes. When asked, Ruth only smiled faintly and said, "Some pests learn the hard way." From then on, no gang dared approach her land again, and though she returned to her quiet farming, everyone who passed her stall at the market noticed something different, that behind her kind smile was a shadow of something greater, a warning not to mistake silence for weakness. And those who whispered about her past now did so with awe, for the legend of the black woman farmer who defended her home with the skill of a ghost sniper spread far and wide, a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary lives conceal extraordinary warriors, waiting for the moment they're called back to war.